Hello, everybody, and today for Batman the Animated Series, we are reviewing the episode Nothing to Fear. This is where Batman goes up against the Scarecrow, and this is his first time meeting him. And this is the first time we see this version of Scarecrow in this show. And I gotta say, this is definitely not my favorite version of Scarecrow, because I prefer the new Batman Adventures Scarecrow, because that one looks terrifying. But this one's kind of silly, but this one also, what's really good about it actually explores Jonathan Crane's backstory, and it follows the comics pretty well with Scarecrow's backstory. Basically, a university scientist who was trying to teach his students various fears, and his obsession with fear drove him mad as he was testing it on his various students, and that's what led him to a life of crime. And this is where Batman meets him for the first time, and he is literally robbing, I think, a casino or something, a bank, with his goons, and he's spreading all, like, the fear toxin, and it comes from, like, his fingertips, and he's able to spray the guards, and, like, he literally is afraid of spiders, and he's, like, scratching himself, and it's just, like, it's crazy. But then when Batman does show up, he's wearing a gas mask. But when he's fighting the goons, he ends up getting hit by one of the goons with, apparently one of them had a dart of fear gas, and it hits Batman, and we find out what Batman's greatest fears is. He's afraid of his fear of failure. Like, he's ashamed, like his family's ashamed of what he has become, the Batman. And he's having visions of his father saying, "You are the disgrace," and it's causing Batman to lose his edge. But he bumps into the cops, Harvey Bullock, and the two butt heads, and they're still butting heads, of course, throughout this show. But Jim Gordon's, of course, still got Batman's back, but Batman goes back to the Batcave to investigate who Jonathan Crane is, and we do learn about his backstory, which I just explained. But, yeah, for the Scarecrow's design, I might as well talk about it. Yeah, it looks a little too cartoony in my opinion, which is, like I said earlier, I prefer the new Batman Adventures because he actually looks like a zombie. But, when we get to that episode in the far future, I'd definitely like to talk about that version of Scarecrow. But his human face, I don't know. I always just thought it looked weird. Like, I don't know. He definitely is Scarecrow for sure in this episode. But yeah. But the main thing about this episode is Batman trying to overcome his fears. But the Scarecrow's his main goal is to spread the fear toxin all over Gotham to get what he wants. But he's going to use like a giant blimp for it. And Batman decides to track down the Scarecrow. And he ends up getting into conflicts with him. And he ends up hanging on to the rope of the blimp. But of course the fear toxin is starting to kick in. Earlier in the Batcave when Batman was investigating, he literally tells Alfred he's afraid because of his parents, thinking he's a failure, not proud of him, but Alfred assures him that he is proud of him. But when Batman does find the information about Scarecrow, he's able to track him down on the blimp, and the two have a showdown, and we get the iconic. It's probably the best scene in this whole episode, is where his father does show up again saying, "You are the disgrace," but then Batman says, "No, you are not my father. I am not a disgrace. I am vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman." One of the most iconic lines from Kevin Conroy is easily his most recognizable. Every time, if you've met Kevin Conroy at conventions, he's always saying that line, even when he did like Cameo. If you know what that is, or you can get a message from a celebrity, Kevin would always do that line. It is honestly sort of a catchphrase, if you want to call it that. But every time when I see this scene, it just gives you goosebumps. That's how brave Batman is. And he's able to overcome his fear of failure. And he finally does catch up to the Scarecrow. and he has his showdown with him. He's able to stop the blimp. It does crash into a few towers, but Batman's able to use the fear toxin against Jonathan, and he is able to turn into a giant bat when I think the Scarecrow did escape, and he ends up going to his little laboratory, and Batman's able to use some fabric of his mask to go find him. But that's where he does use the fear toxin against him, and he's able to turn into a giant bat. And we would see this in other Batman medias where the Joker sees a giant version of the bat in Arkham Origins, and it would not really even scare the Joker at all. But also they would use this in the Dark Knight trilogy where Scarecrow's the villain of that movie and Batman's able to look like a demon bat, and he even uses this in the Arkham game trilogy. So this episode honestly probably took a lot of inspiration for the Arkham games. The Arkham games took inspiration from it for their version of Scarecrow. But that version of Scarecrow is probably my favorite, the Arkhamverse. But this is definitely a decent episode for Scarecrow's debut. But on a high note, it ends with Bruce Wayne visiting once he captured Scarecrow, he decides to visit his parents' grave and leave a rose. And he leaves. So Nothing to Fear is definitely a good episode. A good debut for Scarecrow. Like I said, not a fan of the design, but overall, I think this episode's iconic and a lot of memorable quotes throughout the whole Batman lore and a lot of inspiration for sure. So I'd probably give this episode an 8 out of 10. But the next episode's probably her fun fact is it's the first episode I ever saw of Batman the Animated Series. It is The Last Laugh. So I'm excited to talk about that episode. So I hope you enjoyed this review. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.